Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film my May wrap-up, even though it's almost the end of June. So yeah, I was away on vacation at the end of the month of May, and so I didn't get a chance to do any kind of end of the year finish up of the books that I read in the month of May. I haven't had time to do that at all in the month of June till now, so I thought I would just do it because there's some books here that I would like to talk about. So the first one is a book that I finished right at the beginning of the month of May, and it is a book that would qualify for Mental Health May. So this is a YA novel. This is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. Talia Hibbert, of course, is written the popular romance series Get a Life. Chloe Brown was the first one, and then there was two more books about her sisters. I read those books with my romance reading buddies, Doris and Katie, and so we decided to pick up her latest book, which is this YA. So the two main characters here are Bradley and Celine, and they were best friends growing up as children, and then they have a falling out. They're in high school now, and they are enemies. They're mortal enemies, and they each have mental health issues that they're dealing with. They're both, especially Celine is very motivated and driven to succeed. Bradley is very popular, very athletic, and so they each have their own issues that they're dealing with, but they both enter a competition to win. They're trying to be chosen to participate in a outdoor skills survival type situation. They both get chosen, and so they're both competing in this outdoor survival camp type thing. And of course, they get thrown together, and stuff ensues, plot ensues. Like I said, it is a romance. It was a cute story. It has some good representation, I think, for mental illness, but I just felt that I was not the target audience for this. It was cute, but it was not good, but not great is how I would end up on this one. The next book I want to talk about is one that I have mentioned a couple times before on my channel. This is a nonfiction. It's Femina, A New History of the Middle Ages Through the Women Written Out of It by Janina Ramirez. And I buddy read this with Britta Bowler at the beginning of May, and I had picked this one up in March. Beautiful cover. Was really interested in the topic because I do think that a lot of times historical nonfiction is missing a lot of the point of view of women. So I really was interested in this. And unfortunately, I found this book to be quite disappointing. The subtitle here does not deliver on its promise. There is a few, obviously every chapter is written about a different historical woman, but I did not find that the focus remained on the women enough for me, at least not to my satisfaction. There were bits and pieces of this that really drew me in. Particularly, there was some information about Viking women that was super interesting, and some other short sections that I thought were very interesting. But overall, I found this to be quite dry, quite academic, and the focus did not remain on the women enough for me. And I know that that's because the documentation just simply isn't there in order for the author to flesh this out. Janina Ramirez is a historian, so she definitely has expertise in the subject matter, but I think that the subtitle is misleading and does not deliver. The book does not deliver on what's promised with that, which I think is really irritating and is a disappointment to me. So unfortunately, I think that the information in here is good and interesting. I just wish that it was marketed better so that people really got a better understanding of the material that's in here. And then the next four books were all ebooks that I read while I was on vacation on my Kindle. And I usually have a mixture going while I'm on vacation of genre fiction and then some light nonfiction. So that's what I tend to like to read when I'm on vacation. The first book that I finished is a nonfiction, the name of which is The Breath of a Whale by Leigh Calvez. And this is sort of a mixture of a memoir and a science nonfiction all about whales. And the author is a person who was not formally trained in like sort of to be a whale biologist, but she had a lot of interest in whales and in marine mammals in general, and so became kind of a naturalist, worked on whale watch type outfits, and got involved in some research projects as a helper or assistant, and then is writing about how whales and being around whales and the science of what we know about whales has really impacted her life and other aspects of her life that she struggles with. I found this book to be it got a little woo-woo for me, but when it stayed focused on the science of whales and what we know and don't know about whales, I was really interested and I found it quite captivating. But when she sort of got off into her more spiritual and metaphysical type ruminations about how she sees whales fitting into a life on the planet and how her own life, is connected to that particular aspect, that's just not something that I'm interested in. And I really wanted the focus to stay on the science of whales. And so it was a mixed bag for me. I found parts of it super interesting and really engaging. And then other parts I was sort of rolling my eyes. So that one was a mixed bag for me. I then read a romance novel called Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, and this has been quite popular. It's been around quite a bit, I've noticed on social media, and I was able to pick it up for $2 or $3 as a Kindle deal. So that's why it was on my Kindle, and I just thought a romance would be a great relaxing read for my vacation, so I picked it up and started reading it. And it's a sports romance, and so I don't remember the names of the two main characters, but one is a figure skater and the other is a hockey player. And it reminded me of the movie from the 80s called I think it was called The Cutting Season. Loved that movie. It was a romantic comedy about a figure skater whose partner gets hurt, and a ice hockey player who ends up having to be her partner and train with her. And this is the same premise that this story has, Icebreaker. So for reasons, this ice skater has to practice and with an ice hockey player, and of course he is he's a really good skater but not a figure skater, and he has to learn how to figure skate, and he has to learn about how to lift her properly and how to support her as she's doing her routines. And I liked all of that aspect of the book, but there are some there's misunderstandings. The first of the thing I should say is they're in college. These are college age characters, and I am not as I find romances with that age group to be they can be frustrating for me because the characters don't talk about what's bothering them. They just simply shut down or avoid one another or don't deal with it in a straightforward manner. And I find that to be quite frustrating in my romance reading. So that part I did not enjoy. And there was a character in the book who was the figure skaters, the main female character in this book, the figure skater. She had supposed one of her best friends was her partner, her figure skating partner. He gets hurt and can't skate with her. And so that's why the ice hockey player comes in. But he is very toxic. Her partner that gets hurt. He's a very toxic person, and he treats her terribly. And she keeps upholding him because she considers him a friend. And it's like, how can you not see what this guy is doing to you? Like, how can you not see how he's manipulating you and the situations, and he's being a horrible person? And I just found that extremely, extremely frustrating. So I almost DNF'd this book several times, but I was just like, you know what, I can just blow through it and finish it. And I did. And I probably should have just DNF'd it. So I cannot recommend Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. It did not fulfill my nostalgia for the movie The Cutting Season, I can tell you that. I then read a science fiction novel, Becky Chambers, one of my go-to favorites, The Galaxy and the Ground Within. This is the only book that I hadn't read of hers in her Wayfarers series of books. And this one was an excellent book to read on vacation. It's a feel-good, heartwarming story of a planet that is basically like an interstate rest stop in the universe, in the solar system, where people, travelers who are going to other places need to stop over. And one of our main characters is a person who runs, or is a species, or is a creature, I should say, because none of these are human characters. These are all alien species. She runs an Airbnb type of a place with, you can buy supplies there, you can rent rooms, you can use the bathroom facilities, the shower facilities, that sort of thing. And so there's 3 or 4 ships docked at her station, her facility, and there are some technical difficulties, and people can't leave the planet, and they're all stuck here at her facility. And each of the other species, or each of the other characters, there are some that get along with each other, and there are others who are enemies with each other, and so they all have to learn that the stereotypes that they've learned about each other are not completely correct, and that if you allow yourself to be friendly with people, you can make connections where you might not have otherwise thought you could. And so over the course of several days, these individuals who are very different from one another and who have very different perspectives, come from very different backgrounds, and they have to learn. They learn about each other, and they learn what matters to them and what doesn't matter to them, and how you can be a friend, and to not always take everything that you've heard about other types of people, or other types of aliens in this case, to be the gospel truth before you've met anybody from that particular group. So very good message in the story, very heartwarming, very touching. Becky Chambers is just, if you like Becky Chambers and you haven't yet read The Galaxy and the Ground Within, I highly encourage you to do so. You're going to love it. If you like her other stuff, it's the same type of thing, but with a really fun story, with some really great characters. She has such an imagination when it comes to her characters. They just have the most interesting backgrounds and characteristics. They're really fun to read about. And then last but not least is a nonfiction book called Nothing But a Good Time by Justin Quirk. And this is a book that I first heard about from Bert over at Pet Storytime. And it is a book about glam rock and the hairband era in the late 80s and early 90s. So I am the target audience for this book because I was a teenager at this time period when glam rock was at its peak. So, think of Motley Crue, think of Poison, think of Def Leppard, think of Metallica. Metallica wasn't really a glam band. They were more hard rock, but you know what I mean. Think of Bon Jovi. All of those bands were very popular when I was a teenager. Def Leppard Hysteria album came out when I think I was a freshman in high school, and I wore out multiple CDs of that collection, of that album. And I was a huge fan of Motley Crue. My first concert I ever went to was Motley Crue, and it was amazing. And yeah, I am the target audience for this book. So it was like just a nostalgia trip. It was so interesting to read more in depth about these bands that I loved when I was a teenager. I still love their music, but I sort of, I roll my eyes at the shenanigans that they got up to. A whole lot of very messed up people, very messed up individuals that were participating in these bands who became very, very wealthy in a very short amount of time. And that's just a recipe for disaster for a lot of these folks. And so it was tragic what happened to some of the members of some of these bands. And then it was just eye-rollingly ridiculous what happened to some of the rest of them. But I just had the best time reading this book. And Justin Quirk is a music writer, I think, who writes for the Rolling Stone, maybe I can't remember what periodical, but he is a writer of he writes about music, and so he is very qualified to take on this subject matter, and he has been doing it for a long time. So he sort of followed a lot of these groups over the course of their careers, and it's really interesting how he put this together. So very much, if you also loved hair bands in the 80s, I would absolutely recommend Nothing But a Good Time by Justin Quirk. It was so much fun. So thank you, Bert, for that recommendation. So yeah, that's the books that I had not yet talked about from May. Maybe there's something in that bunch that you think sound interesting. I hope so. If not, I hope that you've been finding some other good things to read in the last couple of months. I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below, and I will talk to you later.